Hi, my name is Rhett Manili, and I'm the Math DC at Southern High School. And I wanted to share some really cool resources for AP Statistics that I learned about at this year's annual AP conference in Washington, DC. And I wanted to kind of embed it into an activity that is already something that is in a curriculum guide. It's actually an activity within the first couple of pages of our textbook. And it has to do with hiring discrimination and whether or not a certain outcome was by coincidence or if it actually is an example of discrimination. So I think it's on page 5 of our textbook. It has to do with an airline having just finished training 25 pilots. There were 15 males and 10 females that were in the training program. Unfortunately, only 8 captain positions are available right now, and the airline managers announced that they will use a random lottery to determine which pilots will fill the positions. A day later, the managers announced the results of the lottery, and of the 8 captains chosen, 5 are female and 3 are male. Some of the male pilots who weren't selected suspect that the random lottery was not carried out fairly, and one of those pilots asked your statistics class for advice about whether to file a grievance with the pilots union. The key question here, and this hopefully is something that you guys talked about at the beginning of the year, is whether or not the outcome of this lottery is believable, if it's something that could have happened just by chance, or if it provides evidence to support some grievance, for example, that the lottery may not have been fair. And so what I usually do with my kids is we actually do the simulation. And you can do the simulation lots of different ways. I think the textbook recommends that you cut out slips of paper. And I did that the first year I taught the class. In fact, I believe that there's a link in the curriculum guide with where you can cut out strips of paper that say male and female. So 15 of the strips are male and 10 of the strips say female, and you basically just put them in a cup and have the kids draw. After doing this a couple of times, I actually bought a bunch of red and white poker chips that I used throughout the course for sampling distributions and when we start discussing p-hat. So I actually have a ton of red and white chips that I used instead. And so basically I just fill a bunch of cups up with white and red chips, and I let the white represent the male chips and red represent the females. And I have kids usually work in partners, or you could even, if you don't have a lot of chips or you don't want to cut out a ton of slips of paper, have them work in groups of 4 and then just have them draw more samples. Because the idea is when you're doing the simulation to have them draw lots and lots and lots of samples. So you can use chips, and then basically these are the instructions that I give them. Mix the chips thoroughly, take turns with your group members randomly sampling 8 chips and recording the number of females in the sample. And then I suggest that they do this until they have 10 results. And then I have them come to the smartboard. And so this is how I've done it in the past. Basically, I have this grid up on my smartboard, and I use the infinite cloner. And so basically, I have my kids just drag and drop their results. It takes a little bit of time to have the kids come up with, if they have 10 trials. It does take a little bit of time. And sometimes, the kids, I don't know, I'm sure you've experienced this, where, they're not putting them neatly. And I don't know, I have a little OCD, and sometimes I start to cringe when they're not like sorted evenly. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because essentially what you're going to be doing is counting the number of trials where there are 5 or more females out of the entire number of trials or samples that were drawn to determine what that percentage is, and if it's reasonable to think that it happened by chance, or if it was so unusual to indicate that maybe there was some discrimination going on. But that's one way to do it. Another way that you can show your kids that's a lot faster would be for them to use their calculator to generate random numbers on their calculator. So this is a slide that you could use as well. Basically what you would have them do is generate the numbers 1 through 25 on their calculator, where I'm just assigning 1 through 10 to represent females and 11 to 25 to represent the males. You could obviously switch it around. It doesn't really matter. There is a command that allows you to generate random numbers without repeats. However, you can't generate 8 numbers at a time. So if you use the random number generator or the random integer generator, it'll simply take the numbers 1 through 25 and put them in a random order without repeats. And so then you would just have to tell the kids to observe the first 8 numbers and tally the number of females in the sample. And so here's an example of what the output looks like. They would just have to use the arrows on their calculator to scoot over to have a sample of 8. So we have a sample of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'd have to use their right arrow to get the other 2 in the sample, and then count the number of females and do the same thing. They could either come up to the smartboard, or this is the resource that I wanted to share with you. There's a really cool website called The Art of Statistics. And I am just now kind of like digging into it, but one of the things you can do is generate displays of data really, really quickly, and they're really nice. So basically it's artofstat.com, and I'm gonna go ahead to the website. And I really think the web apps are something that we can use in this course all the time, but this is essentially a online textbook. So they have data sets. There actually is a textbook that you can go to with practice problems. I'm not really interested in that at this point, but the web apps are really cool. So the web apps enable us to do pretty much all of the stuff our calculator does. Move that out of the way a little bit. So you'll see, I'm just going to scroll down and just kind of introduce you to some of the aspects of the program. So the first one has to do with exploratory analysis, whether you have 1 or 2 samples. So you can look at bar graphs and explore categorical data. You can explore quantitative data. And the cool thing about this web app is that you can construct histograms, box plots, which is hard to do. I mean, there aren't a lot of programs that will allow you to do a box plot. You can also do dot plots and stem and leaf plots, which I have never seen a program that allows you to do stem and leaf plots. So that's where we're going to go in just a second. I just want to kind of illustrate some of the other aspects of these web apps. There are some applications where you can explore the relationship between the mean and the median. There's a random number generator, and then there's a whole section on association and linear regression. So you can look at the association between categorical variables, between quantitative variables. There's even a game where you can guess the correlation. And then looking at linear regression, fitting a regression model. And then there's also probability distribution. So we have a binomial distribution, the normal distribution. We've got a t, a chi-squared, even an f distribution. And you can see that the site is still under construction because they're actually going to be offering a Poisson distribution as well. There's a whole section on sampling distributions and the central limit theorem. So you can look at the sampling distribution for the sample proportion as well as for the sample mean, which I think is pretty cool. And I don't know what the difference is between these two. Oh, one's for continuous random variables and one's for discrete. Awesome. And then it even gets into inference where you can look at confidence intervals and significance tests. And like I said, like I have just recently been exposed to this website, so I haven't had a chance to dig in. But my hope is that I'll be able to do these little 10-minute videos to kind of share, so you're not spending a lot of time digging around, and I'll relate them to activities, and hopefully that'll be a good jumping off spot. So with the data that we have from the simulation with the hiring discrimination, I'm going to go ahead to this Exploring Quantitative Data web app. And I did find a couple little quirks with the web application. This is the way it looks when you first get it, and notice that it defaults to a histogram. And what I found is that if you don't default to the histogram, sometimes it has trouble understanding the input. I got some error messages. So it's a good idea to start off with a histogram. I also want to do a dot plot. So I'm going to check both. But I found that if you don't start with a histogram, sometimes I had some error messages. So if you remember, we're looking at data on the number of females in those samples. So at this point, this is where you're going to enter your data. You're just going to put a space between the numbers. So this would be real fast. You just have each group call out their 10 data values. So like, I'm just making these numbers up as I go. And you can see that as I enter the numbers, it's changing the histogram. And so, you know, that's pretty quick to stand at your computer and enter in the data as everybody goes through. And if I scroll down, you can see the dot plot. And then if you don't want the histogram, you can simply just unclick it, and now you have your dot plot. And so you can very easily count how many samples. Now, obviously, I didn't put, so here, let me show you the quirk. So notice that the minimum here on my dot plot is 3. If I start entering in 1, it doesn't automatically adjust. So I think, I don't know why it doesn't do that, but if you have the histogram there, it will adjust the axis. So I think that's just a quirk in the program that they probably need to work out. But in any case, you can continue to enter in the values. You can look at the bin width, like for example, for the histogram, I'd want my bin width to be more like 1. Let's see. Why is doing the 2.5? So if I wanted my bins to be 1, it's still not doing it very well. So you might have to play around with it for a little bit. But I did find that if you start off with a histogram, it gives you better results for the dot plot. Like I wouldn't want to see the 2.5 here or the 7.5 here. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't know. The one thing that I haven't really figured out is, there we go. There, that's what I'd want to do. So you just have to fiddle with the bin width to get it exactly what you want. It's not as user-friendly in terms of formatting the axes, but it certainly does. It's a quick way to display your data. And just to show you, like, you can do a box plot. And so, and even a stem and leaf plot. Now, all my data is single digits, but go ahead and just click on there. So you can see, you know, if you wanted to show a stem and leaf plot, this would be a really fast way to do it. And it gives you the key up here at the top. You can also save the plots, and then it'll just say, you know, which plot do you want to save, and you can identify which one and download the plot, and it'll download it to your computer. I don't usually download stuff, but what I will do is a screenshot. And so if you can use your the screen capture image from your smart notebook, or if you use OneNote, if you just hit the window key and S, it'll automatically you can do a screenshot. So that basically just sent the image of the box plot to my clipboard, and then if I wanted to, I could go back into my smart notebook and paste it in there, or paste it into a Word document. But I thought that was a really cool application if you needed to just do some really quick graphs, or if you needed them for worksheets or whatever. It's a quick way to get your box plots and those dot plots and stem and leaf plots, which I find is really hard to do. You know, you can't really do them with Excel. So I just wanted to share that resource with you, and I hope to be sharing more resources as I dig a little deeper into this computer program. Good luck, and feel free to email me if you have any questions. It's just rmanili at aacps.org. Have a great day.